You're listening to another episode of Battles with Bits of Rubber, starring Stuart Bray and Todd Debrasini.
Can you hear my printer going in the background? Can you see it back there?
I can, yeah. Your
Printing
little
away.
spot working away. Yay!
Printing a doodad.
I had, I had the biggest problems with printing for a while, and I installed on my CR10. I installed a new filament feed, so I upgraded that. And I think the problem was I found out that it was underfeeding. So what was happening was it just wasn't working as fast as the other one. It was good, but then I learned about, you can speed that up by just changing the multiplication, the speed of it going in. And I did that to 1.7 times speed, and it's glorious now. Everything sticks really well. There's no gaps between layers, and silly little thing like that can completely throw you. And you don't even really know how to ask the question, but yeah, it was good to fix that. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy. Yay.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you got that figured out finally.
Yeah, and it means the filament.
I know that was frustrating.
Yeah, it was, but it means that's good. So I've been using that, and I've got some fun things I want to make. Have you been watching a show called What We Do in the Shadows?
I've seen a few episodes. I haven't watched it in a while.
I really like it.
I saw it when it first started streaming, and thought it was pretty damn funny.
It's very. I really like the second season is excellent, and there's some. What was the reason I had that? Oh yeah, I want to make a little coffin. I want the coffin to open and the vampire to pop out. I'm going to 3D print the whole thing. I built the coffin, so that's fun. So that should be fun. It's like
have a little spring mechanism in it.
Yeah, exactly that. So that's going to be fun. So doing something like that as well. And my bits
life size, of course.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, just print a little bit up. So that's been good. And I printed.
Should be finished printing sometime next year.
Yeah, I printed. I showed you. I printed a street sign for our little road because we didn't have one.
It looks great.
Country
Your
lane.
neighbors are going to love you.
I hope so. Well, I just wanted something that looked like cast iron, so it's kind of like a little bit of prop making almost, but using the 3D printer and a bit of molding, and it's nice to know. It's really nice that if you know how to make molds efficiently, you can really use a 3D printer to its best because you can bang these things out at very low infill and very they don't have to be immaculate or particularly strong because you just need its shape, and then you mold it and you cast it out in something like epoxy resin, and it's tough as old boots, and it's brilliant. So I'm having a good time with it. So there we go.
Cool.
What are you printing, or can you say?
Oh yeah, I'm just printing a little box it's the size it's 76 millimeters by 167 millimeters. It's to fit in that little silicone mat that I made for Battles with Bits of Rubber that has the little modularized brush holders and stuff. I think I sent you one.
Yeah, you did.
Ages ago.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, I do. I love.
So just a little open box rather than a thing for specific bottle sizes. It's just a little bin that you can throw shit in.
Excellent. Well, that's cool.
Bits and bobs.
Wonderful. Well, so we're it's been a while. We've had quite a long layoff from various things.
Yeah, it's been a weird year.
It's been a very weird,
to say the least.
Yeah, you had like catastrophic computer problems. It was just
and weather stuff. Did you hear about the tremendous storms in our Midwest in Iowa?
No, I haven't.
Yesterday or over the weekend, like category 2 hurricane force winds.
Wow.
Just knocked the shit out of everything.
Okay. That's not good. I'm sorry to hear that. For those of you that may be listening that are from there. Holy shit.
Yeah. If Mother Nature gets pissed, there's nothing we can do about it.
No, it's terrifying, isn't it? When something like that, weather still kicks in. On top of everything else that's going on. It's like, that's a shitty year. Oh my God.
I know.
Yeah, so bearing in mind that everything on the news is talking about COVID and all that kind of stuff, I don't really want to go into it here. I'm sure everyone's kind of trying to get away from it, so we'll stick on task. So today, I think it was one of those things where you kind of like watch things or you see posts on Facebook and people say, "Oh, do you see this?" and they'll do like a freeze frame close up of an edge on a piece or something, and joyfully point out something that wasn't perfect on a makeup, which is true. But the irony is, there's a million things that you didn't notice because they weren't there to be seen, but they could have been just as problematic and just as difficult.
If you got a funky edge, just cover it with blood. It'll be fine.
It's an age makeup. Yeah, but he fell over. Yeah. So you just throwing blood over everything. But and I've done it myself as well. And we've all seen things like you're watching something like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. I can't, but someone will point to something and go, "Oh, look at that edge. You can see that thing." And it's like, you don't know what the story is. You don't know whether it's like that was the end of the shooting day and it looked flawless for 12 hours.
Oh yeah, any number of things can happen.
All that kind of stuff.
I've seen shots in finished theatrical releases where you can see the entire reflection of the camera crew in the side of a bus, or a shadow of somebody holding the boom. It's like, how the hell did they let that get into the movie?
Yeah.
Well, like you said, maybe they ran out of money. Maybe that was the best take of all of them.
Yeah, and that was the smallest price to pay for
it could be any number of things. There's no way of knowing.
Yeah, it's tricky.
It's not like everybody is Ed Wood and just hasn't got a clue about filmmaking.
No, we'll just keep throwing takes at it until it makes it better. But it's one of those things where, when people spot the bad thing, there's one part of it, it's like, well, you don't know what led to that, so you could be very generous and say, it could be, shot at the end of the day or something, or they, they kept it on overnight and they filmed it, the next day, or some extraordinary situation. But the point I really wanted to focus on was all the things that you don't notice, that you didn't notice them because they were problems that were overcome, and as a result of them not being noticed, there isn't necessarily a lot of spotlight on what could go wrong. So I thought it'd be quite nice to do a chat about what goes wrong.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Because obviously, your silicone might not cure, or you forget to sculpt, or your workshop burns down, or something obvious like that. But there are lots of little things that get in the way of, an ideal makeup situation. So I thought it might be good just to have a little chat about the various things that could go wrong. I had a bit of a brainstorm session. I kind of drew on a few things that have happened to me personally as well, and I'm sure you'll think of.
Oh yeah, no, I would venture there aren't many of us out there who haven't encountered something on set or in the shop that you hadn't counted on.
Yeah.
But happens pretty routinely, like showing up on set where you're not the one who sculpted or fabricated the prosthetic pieces, but you're the one that's going to be applying them on the day.
Yeah.
And you show up and you meet your actor for the first time, and somebody hands you a box that's got the prosthetics in it, and you
are there any pieces on these edges? Where
go to fit them,
yeah,
and they don't fit.
Yeah, we've had some stuff like that.
Something's missing. It's well, tough shit.
Yeah.
You must soldier on and make it work.
Let's look at what we would consider an ideal scenario. So an ideal scenario would be a really nice actor who's, cool and happy with his stuff. There's
somebody who actually likes being in prosthetics.
Yeah, that would be even better. Or someone that just didn't give you a hard time about it. There's enough time. There's enough money. And production understand and can accommodate the limitations of makeup, because it's not magic. It's a bit of rubber.
Yeah. And I think being able to do testing, that's not always the case. That's kind of a luxury in a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
That, the first time you apply it is when you show up on the day, and it's like, God, I hope this works.
Yeah, that is not uncommon, and it's harder and harder. It's weird when I do get makeup test days. It almost feels like the exception rather than the rule, and it's always much better when you get that time to do it, even just from ironing out the little kinks and the problems, but also just knowing how long it's going to take. So you can say, "Oh, we did that quicker than we thought. Like, we don't need to start till 6." Do you know what I mean? Whereas you might panic and go, "Well, I don't know how long it's going to take, so we better slap on an extra hour to sort of iron out the problems. So we're going to start at 5." Yeah. So it's just better for everyone if you can do that. So there we go.
Yeah, nothing creates a relaxed atmosphere on set more than a first AD standing over your shoulder saying, "How much longer?
Yeah.
How much longer? How much longer?"
Do you remember I'm trying to think it might have been the first or second Makeup Artist magazine, and there was an interview with Dan Strupek. Do you remember that? And there was a little bit about him saying an AD was in the trailer and asking him how long he's going to be and all this kind of stuff. I kept badgering him, and he was just putting the pencil to the guy's brow, and the AD was like, "Oh, he's just putting the pencil on the guy's brow now." So apparently, Dan Strepak put the pencil down, picked the guy up, just manhandle him out the trailer. It's like, get the fuck out! Do you know what I mean? It's like, I know how to do brows better than you know how to AD.
Yeah.
So it's like, holy shit, you wouldn't do that now, I don't think. But I like the fact that I would love to have seen that. I'd love him to be the department head. You'd be like, wow, look at him go. That's awesome. He was, I think he died a few years ago, sadly. He was Tom Hanks's personal for the longest time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I remember seeing him very briefly. I think it was on Saving Private Ryan. We saw him very briefly. It was amazing. It was just one of those things where, you're in a movie like that, and it's like, the makeup artist is the guy that I'm a bit giddy about. I think Duncan Jones said, "Oh, look, there's Dan Strepak." It was a holy shit, and we were asking him about it and stuff. And they were filming the landing sequence, stuff. So all the actors are out in the boats, and I'm like, "Oh, what'd you do about touch-ups and stuff?" He's like, "There's nothing I can do here." I'm like, "Fair enough, stupid question, but it's one of those kind of I'm sorry, I'm an idiot kind of things." But yeah, so that was kind of cool. So let's go through a list of things. I've done like a bullet point list of like 3. Number 3 was like things that go wrong in the outside world, like production stuff, things you can't really control that come from the outside, to do production, and things that go wrong in the inside world. So, your own workshop materials, that kind of stuff. So one of the things they could do is change the actor. That's always a good one, where you've made a bunch of pieces and it fits this person perfectly, and then they change it.
And then somebody else comes in.
Yeah, and then that's it. Boom, gone.
Yeah.
And there may be not enough time to redo the pieces.
Nope, but you still have to make it work.
That happened on Brothers Grimm. I was working with Carl Derrick on Brothers Grimm, which is a movie shot in Czechoslovakia. It's shot in Prague in Barrandov Studios. And this would have been 2003, I think. And we had this actress who was playing the old queen. She was supposed to be like this ancient queen. She had this whole full prosthetic makeup on her face. And after like 2 or 3 days of this, I think she just decided she wasn't going to do it anymore. She didn't want to do it. It was making out all kinds of weird, like, bullshit things, like the makeup was making her puke up blood and all this kind of stuff. Just nonsense. And she bailed on us, and it was Carl's missus in the end ended up taking up the role, and she acted the part with these pieces that were designed and made to fit this other girl who was tiny. So these pieces were foam, so they shrunk a bit anyway, but we were trying to put them on like a normal size adult, and then we had to stretch them like Billy-O is crazy to get them to fit.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
We got away with it. It was good. I mean, it fitted well, but it was just the fact that the foams were soft enough that you could stretch them. Not really a problem with silicone. You'd have the other problem if it was someone who was smaller, for example, because you can't really gather it. But so that was one of those things. So changing the actor is not good.
Yeah, I think foam latex has a tendency, especially if you've got a really light foam, is more easily adaptable to changing sizes. If your actor changes, you can gather in, and I've had to do darts in foam pieces and been able to patch them
like tailoring.
Well enough
you
that,
actually cut a wedge out in order to make it fit.
Yeah, like chin pieces. Sometimes under the chin, if it's made for one person and it's going on somebody else, there's usually a gap under the chin that doesn't quite fit right because it's it's a big curve. It's like a sphere, half a sphere. And you can take a dart directly under the chin, and it's great if you've got a lace hairpiece going over it. So it doesn't make a bit of difference. You can just cut it and glue it, and it doesn't matter if you've got the same. But if you're going to be seeing under the chin, you can blend it pretty easily.
Yeah, that was a joy with foam, wasn't it?
Yeah, but silicone, it's much more of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, there's not much you can do about it. I mean, I think that's probably one good reason. If you think things are going to be a bit flaky, maybe make the pieces in more make the appliances in smaller, more overlapping pieces, so there's a bit more kind of wiggle room with fit. If you think maybe someone's going to be a bit flaky, but normally you try and get them in as few pieces as possible, just because it's fewer molds, isn't it? And cheap, which is a pain. So they could change the actor. They could change the script. They may just decide, oh, we've just rewritten this whole sequence. We don't want that anymore. So all that stuff you've made now we don't want, or worse still, we've written a bunch of stuff that you haven't made and we need that. As long as you're getting paid, I don't really mind if it goes in the bin, but it's like, it's not good if there's no time. They may change the timeline as well. That can happen. Like suddenly the actor's got to do something for another show, so they have to film their scenes a week earlier, and that's not what you agreed. And no one's going to, move the goalposts for you because you're probably
and
the
on
least
on that
significant.
note, on the note of the timeline, I mean, if you're doing a TV spot or even a TV show, and they've already got an air date for it, that's locked in stone. It's not going to change. And you've got a supplier who's supposed to be sending you stuff for things you have to make, and it keeps getting, it's back ordered. You'll have it day after tomorrow, and then day after tomorrow comes, and they say, oh, hey, tomorrow. And your window is closing because that there's a finite date that it's gotta be done by, and if it's not, time to start thinking about changing your name and getting a new passport.
Yeah, because they're not going to let that slide. The other thing that can happen is allergies, beliefs, and I didn't put that in, but just pain in the arseness, if that's a thing. Now, if you've got allergies and beliefs and things,
difficult actors. Who'd have thunk?
Well, what I mean by that is I don't have a problem with people who, like, for example, if somebody's vegan, they don't want to wear gelatin, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Where I get annoyed is when I'm trying to think what it was. There was somebody that wanted, they posted it on Facebook, and it was this whole laundry list of things that they had some big actor who had demanded to see that everything was vegan. And it was stuff that wasn't even, like, had never been made from an animal. Like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, if I buy, I don't know, a metal scaffold pole, it doesn't say on it that it's a vegan metal scaffold pole, because it's the fact that it's not, that it's made from metal it's therefore, do you know what I mean? So it also doesn't say that it's not made from unicorn blood, because do you know what I mean? There's lots of things that it isn't. So it's like, so I understand.
But you don't want to you don't need to see a label of contains no cholesterol when you're buying fresh corn at the farmer's market.
Yes, exactly. So you've got that kind of thing, which is, it's difficult because you have to kind of nod along with it. And some things you kind of go, like the clay that they were using, was that vegan? It was just like, none of this. I mean, there are some things that you go, like some makeups, they could have been tested on animals or whatever. So we won't use those. But there's so many products that we use that have got nothing to do with cosmetics, because they're the workshop stuff. They're the plaster, it's the latex, it's the, all the other things, and the silicone and all those kind of stuff. Those things are not, don't necessarily have anything to do with that stuff. So that, what I mean is you end up with all this extra admin where you may have to jump through hoops that weren't there 30 years ago, which can, add to things. And when I said about beliefs, I don't necessarily mean religion. I just mean, like, for example, I was doing something not long ago, a few months back, and an actress was convinced that the smell of Prozac was making her woozy, and I'm like, there's no fumes in Prozac, it's a water-based glue, but you might not like the smell, but it's not like gonna kill your brain. So it's not like I don't know, like a silicone adhesive that has solvents in it. It's just water-based, so I can put a little fan, all that kind of stuff. But the huffing and the puffing and the tutting and the twitching in the chair, and it's like, when you've stuck on with thousands of pieces with this stuff with no problems, when someone suddenly, and I kind of see that happening more, where people just think it's a problem, or think it's going to hurt them, or think it's a thing, and I don't know, I just think that people are less willing to withstand discomfort than perhaps they had been in the past. So it's one of those things where you just, I don't know, I'm seeing a rise in sensitivities to things above and beyond medical. I'm just talking about, like, if it feels less than joyous, there must be something wrong with it. It's like, no, wearing a mask all day is just fucking horrible. Always has been.
I think with this COVID stuff, now we are just.
Well, I didn't mean that kind of mask. I just meant, like, like a monster mask, like on Doctor Who. There were people going, "This is wrong," and it's like, we had like a creature, Elsa Burke, her name was. She's a creature performer, very well known. Worked on Greystoke and what very very adept at this, and was basically sort of like schooling people. A big part of what she does is like making people realize, yeah, it's not very nice. That is what wearing a big monster suit all day is. It's not very nice, but it's not going to
Yeah.
kill you. It's it's not getting shot at while wearing a
If
scuba
it was
gear.
easy, anybody could do it.
Exactly. So you have those things. So those are things where like you may have something that you know very well, but it's just you get all these other things that kind of creep in that you'll perform. You might have 5 actors and 4 of them are fine, and one of them's just like everything's got to be just right. So that can be you end up spending like a disproportionate amount of time making them feel okay, and and that can be a pain. So there we go. And you get actors that hate wearing appliances. Some love them, some love it, some like the fact that they look different, but some just moan about early calls.
Oh yeah, no, I've got a couple actors that I work with regularly who love to be my guinea pig.
Oh, really? That's good.
So I have life casts of them all over the place. When I'm sculpting generic pieces, I've got these actors' faces to sculpt on because they've always loved being the guinea pig.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good.
Any chance to get into to change your physical appearance, they love because it just means you can get more into the character.
Excellent. Well, that's I mean, I like that kind of thing, and you get someone like I never worked on him, but someone like Gary Oldman who like really digs looking different. It makes them behave differently, or someone like Charlize Theron in Monster. She looks so different. It's lovely when you see that, and people fully embrace all that. Not everyone's into that. And leading on from that, you could get an actor that fidgets and farts around in their chair, and that's like, so you said.
Oh God, when I was in Belize doing this movie, The Enemy God, we had all these indigenous actors playing background characters, but we still had to do wigs and prosthetics and body paint on all these people. And I'd have moms coming in, they've never acted before. Some of them had never even seen a movie, let alone be in one. And I'd have her in a chair, and I'm trying to do makeup on her, and she's got a baby sucking at a breast, and she's got another snotty-nosed toddler yanking at her skirt. All the while I'm trying to do makeup, and this cacophony of stuff is going play, and they're wiggling, and I'm trying to paint a straight line, and 1 minute there's a face under the brush, and half a second later the brush is just in thin air. It's maddening.
That is maddening. But you have to kind of put up with that stuff. But that's kind of the point of this, isn't it? To say, these things happen. When you've done makeups in makeup school, or you've done it with a mate, or you've done something at leisure for fun, that often conditions are almost perfect. And then, when you get something like that, or, you could be outside, or, there's power cuts, or that kind of stuff. It's like, suddenly it gets very, very difficult. And the fidgeting around is annoying, isn't it? Because if you've got like, say, if you've said to the director, look, it's going to take 2 hours to do this, but, in that 2 hours, they were not still for, an hour and a half of it. That's terrible. And maybe something you hadn't anticipated. And you do get in external emergencies. You get power cuts, you get weather, you get illness, you get all kinds of stuff like that. And one of the other things, and I'm sure you know exactly this because I'm sure you've had this plenty of times, is that the amount of time that gets pissed away by people not replying quickly to questions or approvals. Like, you finished the sculpt. It's like, I'm ready to mold it now if you like it, but I can't mold it until you've approved it. And so you send the email, you make the call, and you don't hear back for 3 days. Well, now we're 3 days closer to the deadline, just because you didn't get back to me on time, because it didn't seem like an important thing. But it's like, that can really eat.
Yeah, and it's there's the adage that poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. But there are times when the poor planning is coming from the higher ups, and you're the schmuck in the shop who gets the short end of the stick when it comes down to it. Your window's closing, and you've still got to have everything done by the original deadline, and they don't give a fuck if you have to stay up all night for 4 nights in a row to get it done.
Yeah. Oh, it's just
because they were stupid.
I had these things. I had one job which was for a music video. I had to make like I think it was like 10 brains that get squished, and I called around to a few people. This was years ago, and I called up Neil Gorton, and I was like, "Oh, do you have a brain mold? Because if people had a mold, I could just run them out. That was gonna be a nice job." He said, "Yeah, I've got a
Yeah.
brain mold kicking around." So I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Anyway, I got to his workshop, and this was for the next day. And I said yes, and I'd got paid and everything, and it was all fine. And then I had to make these 10 brains that get stomped on and squish. So I'm thinking, yeah, the mold's there, so that should be no problems. I can do that. Anyway, I get to his workshop, and he's like, oh, they're in such and such. Anyway, I spend a couple of hours looking, and I can't find the mold anywhere. And we just couldn't find the mold. It's one of those things. It's like, oh shit, I know I've got it. I couldn't find it. It felt really bad. But anyway, it turns out basically we ain't got a mold. So I overnight had to sculpt and mold and then cast out the 10 brains.
10.
So it was all night.
What'd you cast them in?
I think they were in like a thin skin of polyfoam, and then they were just jammed in there with like Vinymold and bits of gelatine and shredded gloves and all kinds of things, and then you'd kind of split them. And I had to paint them and everything. I mean, it was just like a huge amount of work to do in like 12 hours, but it was just like, but he got it done. But it was just it was a not a fun experience. But these things happen. It was one of those things.
Yeah, they do. It's the theater world is like that a lot, because things are constantly getting changed in tech, and opening night is opening night.
Yep.
I've never missed a deadline. I've never missed an opening by not having my stuff done. Set for Young Frankenstein wasn't finished until the second week of the show.
Oh my God. Well, they just go without.
Well, they little bit here, a little bit there. It still looked fine. The audience couldn't tell, but yeah, the monster was done in plenty of time, and we had a great run with that show. I love doing Young Frankenstein.
So so that's from the outside world, and then what can go wrong in the workshop? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you cut your finger off.
That could happen.
And still have to finish the work in a cast. Yep. Or big bandage. I've done that. I've cast stuff up, shoved my hand into nitrile gloves with huge bandages on my fingers because I have a propensity for drawing blood around power tools.
Good to know. It's a skill.
Fortunately, it hasn't happened for it. It's a gift.
Yeah. You got to use a router or something. Oh Christ, here we go. Using that.
Oh yeah.
Make sure you fire up the GoPro so we can get this on video.
See how far this will fly.
So yeah, the things like that, just genuine illness and injury can get in the way. And obviously these problems can be multiplied by that depending on how many crew you've got. If you're working in a big crew, that can be a thing. I think one of the biggest things that can happen is the life cast goes bad. You could do the life cast, something could go wrong. It could be you get caught out with materials, things set before you're ready, or you drop the damn thing. We had this one life cast that we'd done, and I'd filled it up. I didn't do the life cast, but I was responsible for filling it with plaster because we'd done it in the workshop. And the forehead, the plaster had got between the alginate and the forehead, and crept in and dented in, and it was for Angelina Jolie. It was one of those. It was for, I think it was Alexander the Great. I think done a really nice cast, and I just fucked it by putting it together wrong or something. And this plaster guy. So when we got the cast out, there was this big dent in the forehead that was just caved in. So I had to fill that in. I did, fine. It was fine. It was a good. Like if anywhere was going to go wrong, that was the best area. So it was reference pictures and sculpted back in. Right. It was fine. Because it was just dummy head, I think, in the end. But it was one of the things that could have gone really, really bad. But if the life cast goes bad, then that's the shit from the outset. And your master mold could go bad. You could get a material failure. I've had it in the past where some fast cast resin turned up and they sent me 2 parts A, even though one was labeled B. And I did some tests and it was like, oh shit, it was just one of those silly little things that happens, but it's out of your control. And that could completely fuck something if you sculpted it, put that on there, So it's always good to do a test, check these things out.
Mm-hmm. Stuff like that is sometimes there may be no fix.
You just got to do it again.
and you still have, and you gotta suck it up and figure out how to way to make it happen.
Well, those things, I mean, if it doesn't kill you, that stuff is experience. You know, that's where the grey hairs and the wrinkles come from. That's what I say about my grey hairs. I've earned every single
Yeah.
fucking one. So you got material failure, or operator failure. You know, you did it wrong. I mean, people often underestimate the extent of a job, or they under budget for it. You know, they think it's going to do this, and because they want the job, they'll sort of, you know, trim away. Or we've all done it. You add it up, you look at the number, and you go, "Oh, that number's too big." So you bang it down, and then, you know, they accept it, and then they'll suddenly you got to work for next to nothing, and you know, that's no good.
Or they'll add something to it and expect you to do it for the original
I mean,
bid.
that's a very interesting point.
I mean, that's a common experience in the visual effects world, where you bid a job for X amount of dollars, and they approve it, and oh, by the way, we're adding 3 shots to your list of things to do, but we're not paying you anymore.
Especially, well, see, it's weird, isn't it? Because if they've got a lot of shots, then they kind of think there's like some kind of like group discount thing going on, where it's like, well, we got 30 shots in there, so we figured we could slap another 5 in and you do it, you know. So I think that's very, very much the case of visual effects too, like you say, where people don't really understand what is required, and you can't just throw these things in. I mean, we've had things where, like, with a makeup, it was for a TV show called Hex 2. And I think it was a makeup that Martin Rizard had sculpted, and I'd molded in fiberglass. And we were running silicone. It was back in the days before we were using cat plastic as a barrier. So we were using the A&B Plat Gel 10 as the skin. And I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Somebody, I think, had helped us clean out the molds. And there was a part of the piece that every time we cast it out, it was gooey. Every time. So we figured someone must have used latex gloves when they were handling the molds. And you know, we had assistants in the workshop helping out. We were also running foam latex in the workshop, so it's possible that someone got latex on this mold at some point. And so we ended up doing it in gelatine. I think Martin ran the pieces in gelatine. It worked great. It was fantastic. But it was just one of those things where it's like, holy shit, you think you're home dry because you got the mold, and something like that can go wrong. And, you know,
well, even releases, you know, it's not just gloves that are handling. It's there's a long list of possible cure inhibitors that could be the culprit. You know, some of the actual release agents you use, if you don't let it dry long enough, that's going to give you
I think
problems.
The general rule is if you're using silicone, and it matters if you don't turn up with the pieces on time, you have a duty to have some man inhibit X on standby. Just like if you have a workshop, you should have a first aid kit and an iron station. If you run silicon, you should have some of that inhibit X. Smooth on sell it. It's made by a company called Man with
absolutely. It's great.
Amazing. It's pure power.
It's great stuff, but there's a caveat with that also, that I have experienced firsthand, because I had an UltraCal mold that I thought might have some problems with it, so I did inhibit X all on the inside of it, and I thought it was dry, but it wasn't as dry as I thought, and I poured silicone into it, and the silicone bonded to the stone.
Yeah, I had something like that last year.
It's like talk about your
I had one of those last year as
moment.
Well. Yeah, when your silicon inexplicably bonds, and I mean bonds, to the mold, you are not getting that off. I had that.
No, and it's
had
like
that on Dracula.
Square one.
I had that on Dracula. There was a fire mask. Was that a fire mask? Yeah, fire mask. And we got one out, and it was fine. We got a usable one out, but I cast another one, and there was something to do with, because it was a mixture of Plat Gel, and we used some smooth on silicon for something else, and the two just didn't work. You'd think because they're both platinum that they would be fine, but for some reason it bonded like shit to a blanket onto the mold. I could not get it apart. I mean, I you know, there's pictures of somewhere of opening, and it's like 6 inches apart, but the silicon is still bonded to both. You know, it just tore the mask trying to get it. You are not getting that out.
Yeah.
And that could have been something to do with that. Maybe it was an inhibit X thing. Oh my God, it's fucking awful when that happens.
Yeah, it's gotta make. Oh yeah, no, it's like those flop sweat moments. He's like, geez, it wasn't
No,
this
there
hot
you
in
are.
here a
You've
moment
just
ago.
yeah, your shirt's dark and stuck to your skin because you're sweating through it. Horrible. So that's no good. So you could get the mold breaking. That's not a good one. You're prying something apart. Snap your mold breaks. You know that's no good.
Yeah, no.
Something that I haven't happened for a while because
Mhm.
I always do tests now and I've been doing it for longer. But one of the things I noticed on one of the jobs I did was that I couldn't get the paint to stick to the silicone. You know, so you might think, oh, good, I've got 2 days to paint this thing, and you spend a day and a half painting it. You think you're really happy. In the morning, you go and touch it, you scrape with your finger, and it comes off. You're like, oh shit, I've got to do it all again. You know, so
Yeah.
so that's not good. And yeah.
Yeah, they say nothing sticks to silicone except other silicone, but sometimes
Yeah, you
even
got to do
silicone
tests.
doesn't
You got
stick
to
to
do tests.
silicone.
And you know, there's a difference between a platinum
Yeah.
silicone and a tin silicone. You know, most things stick to tin silicone. Platinum can be a bit fussy, but
Yeah. And the longer it is between the time you pull something out of the mold and you paint it, the longer there is between painting and casting, the more
yeah,
likely you are to have
yeah,
problems
because
with
it
the
sort of
paint sticking.
adopts
So you want to paint as soon as you possibly can.
things like hot weather as well. We've had a big hot spell in England recently. Well, I told you about it was like 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is crazy for here.
Yeah, I think we hit
Jesus,
three digits today. It was 130 in Death Valley, California yesterday.
that's not fun. I bet they're not running many silicon pieces down
I
there.
can't I can't even
No.
imagine. No, nothing would stick in
Yeah.
that kind of weather. We had trouble getting stuff to stick in Belize,
Sweat was it?
where you know, obviously we didn't use any gelatin because it was just too freaking hot and too wet. But we had multiple days on our 12-week shoot of 110 degrees with 100%
Oh
humidity
my god! How long were you there for?
and no wind. I was there for almost 13 weeks.
Did you get any interesting bloodborne infestation?
um, I'm not sure. Not that I'm aware of. I was about the only one. I was about the only one on the crew who didn't get sick while I was down there.
Yeah.
But I suffered nerve damage in my feet from just wearing these wellies through the jungle in just my stocking feet and stepping on roots and rocks and shit in the jungle.
Talking of shit in the jungle, shit in the forest. Back on Brothers Grimm, it was me and Carl. We were doing this makeup, and it was just us two. So, like, if we weren't there, the makeup wasn't getting stuck on, right? So we had to do it, and we were there for about 4 weeks, I think. And we got really sick, and the whole crew had gotten quite sick with this kind of bug. And I think it turned out they reckoned what it was we had this interior forest set, and they had horses,
Yeah.
and horses would, you know, shitting everywhere like they do, and they weren't that great about cleaning it up. And a lot of people got sick, and I got really sick, and we spent, I think, of the 4 weeks I was there, 3 of them, you know, with really bad guts. And there were times we were putting the makeup on, and Carl and I would have to take it in turns to run out the room and evacuate ourselves from whichever end it was at that moment. It was fucking
To go do
horrible.
the big spit or what?
It was horrible.
Oh man.
Getting there, I think we were starting the makeup at 3 a.m. and then you feel like that. It was just awful. It's the worst time. It was just horrible. I remember I got a medic because I had such bad guts and I was dehydrated. They had this medic that gave us these sachets, you know, these salt mixtures that you drink to rehydrate yourself. But it was vanilla flavored.
Yeah.
Vanilla is not something that should be watered
Ew.
down. Okay, that's a milky drink flavor. You don't have a vanilla flavored thing that's watery. It was absolutely vile. I mean, just mint or I don't know, nothing. Just salty would be fine, but it's horrible. So
I no longer wish I had been on that shoot with you.
it was just horrible. So
I had one of my assistants who had helped build a lot of the stuff for the Enemy God in the shop was really bummed that he couldn't go on the shoot, that they didn't have the budget for another makeup artist to come down with me. So I had 2 assistants down there, and once I got back and he saw all the pictures of all the spiders in Scorpions and stuff, he no longer felt bad about not being able to
Yeah,
go.
that's fair enough. I don't think I'd enjoy that. Anything bigger than my hand that's covered in hair running across the room, fuck that into a cocked hat.
Yeah, no, we'd be walking. We had a few night shoots, and we'd be going from one village set where the makeup hut was to another village set. Maybe 100 yards down a narrow footpath through the jungle, and we'd have headlamps on, and we'd be carrying all our stuff with us, and we'd be looking side to side, and our headlamp would be shining off into the jungle, and you just see these hundreds and hundreds of little blue-green reflections coming back at you
Jesus Christ.
when you shined off into the jungle. It's like all of these things out here just hoping you'll fall down so they can eat you.
Yes, it would be a meal for something. That's a nice laundry list of things to worry about. So I guess we should come on to the section of how will you deal with these things? And I think the biggest one is probably experience, is knowing that these things will happen. See, this is why I think you have to earn your stripes. I mean, I know people can sort of find themselves in a fortunate position of getting asked to do something and they haven't got a lot of experience, but this is where you can really fuck things up, because you need to have kind of worked for other people to have witnessed these things without it being your personal responsibility. But experience counts for a lot, because you know that these things are going to happen and you plan for the unexpected and you have contingencies.
Yeah, there's no such thing as being too prepared.
No, you really need to make sure that you take those into things into account. I think one of the most important things as well is when you start is to, have your meetings and, understand the job, and it's important that you know what you are doing before you begin. I think that's like a condition of employment. Like if you're going to do something, you need to make it part of your terms and conditions that, you have a meeting about what it is you're being, what it is you're doing, so that you can like write down everything and have like submit a clear list of your terms and conditions. What do you need to do your job? And that would include, an actor who can sit still for the 40 minutes it takes to put this on. Do you know what I mean? And be very explicit about those things, because if this is going to take an hour to do something, but they're a pain in the ass, so it's going to take 90 minutes, or they keep checking their phone, or they they're on the phone or whatever. One of the things I think is really good to do, for example, is during application, is to have a stopwatch. New time. So you say you got an hour and a half of makeup. So when we start the makeup, you press stop. Start on the stopwatch, and then if after 20 minutes someone comes in and asks them what they want for lunch, and there's a 10-minute conversation about the sides or script changes or whatever they did the weekend, you press stop. While you can't put makeup on, you stop. So when someone comes in at 90 minutes and say you ready, you go, well, I've only had an hour and 10, because you know what I mean. It's one of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important that everybody speaks the same language from the producers on down. I've run into a number of on a number of occasions that the director and the AD and nobody really understands prosthetics, but they're doing a show that one of the main characters is heavily made up in prosthetics, and it's a big part of the look of the film. And we get the actor in this multi-piece encapsulated silicone, contact lenses, dentures, lace hair pieces. We start doing the application at 6 o'clock in the morning, and by 9 we're camera ready, and they don't shoot it until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when it no longer looks camera ready. And I'm pissed, and the actor is pissed, and it's like, why the fuck did we do this beautiful work before the sun came up?
Especially if they weren't being used,
when you're not even doing this, and you don't want to scream at them like they deserve, but the education of other crew, including producers and directors, has to happen, and I don't know how to make that happen. An example of a case where things are in great shape, Erin Kruger Mikash, who was department head on American Horror Story. Well, she's now a producer on the show, and she's passed the reins on to some of the other crew that have worked with her for years. So she gets it. It's when you've worn other hats,
Same.
what's
Yeah.
necessary.
Greg
So
Nicotero
you can
in
make
Walking Dead.
so you can make
he
sure that
knows other departments and
exactly.
Mhm.
So you can rest assured that the proper scheduling is going to take place. But that's so rarely the case with other productions. Even on big Marvel stuff, I would imagine they run into the same shit.
Make it rain until it's right. But for all of that, that's where the experience comes in. It's your job as the prosthetic person to make them aware of these limitations and be very explicit about them at the meetings and saying, here's a makeup. This is why I'm a big believer in taking pictures of taking pictures of the makeups, when they're done, and then when things go wrong, when you get edges, rubbish and lifting, and it's more, I say it's more of a problem. I remember it happening on Blade 2 with foam pieces. I also remember it happening a lot more with silicone, where you get sweat bubbles under the surface because, with foam, the sweat can pass through, but if you've got a heavy Pax layer over the top, and it happens a lot on the edges where it's very prosaidy, you'll get, bubbles of sweat forming under the surface because it can't get through. So that's a consideration. So if you're filming somewhere where it's particularly cool, it might not be a problem. But if you're filming somewhere it's really hot, they can get sweaty. So if something's going to get sweaty and bubble up and look shit, that's not...
Get that little milky dribble of perspiration from the prostate.
Depending on how alkaline or acidic the skin.
Yeah.
So you get all those problems. So if that's a thing, I think it's really good, even if it's not a problem for you because maybe they're done shooting. But if you can capture these things in your makeups, just take photos of the things that go wrong, because when you're having a meeting, you go, if you put a piece on someone, you leave it for 12 hours, and it's the Sahara Desert, or you've had them do endless takes that you didn't shoot the rehearsals. This is what it could look like. A classic is hands. We did stuff for Doctor Strange, and it's like, hands get fucking ruined because people go to the toilet, they eat, they drink, they wash that, so hands get ruined. And so I can't stop that from happening. But
all the high traffic areas, corners of the mouth, around the nose, where you're breathing warm, moist air.
Yeah, if you've got tight collars, rubbing on necks, and someone's got a very active performance. You said earlier about the piece where you could cut under the chin. If you've got a hair piece there, like a beard or something, that can be a consideration. But if you haven't, it's a problem. So your job is to point these things out and say, look, it's not fucking magic. If you put a beautiful makeup on somebody's face and then you insist on dragging their face across a wall and then turning to camera and then having a tight close-up, it's probably going to fuck the piece. That's just the nature of a piece of rubber on someone's face. So
and it doesn't matter who applied it.
Clear. Exactly. So you have to make it very clear that it's a piece of rubber. It's not his skin. It won't necessarily behave like the person's skin. So if your actor is going to be doing this thing, you need to be aware of these are the limitations. So your job is really to know the job well enough that you can make them aware, knowing that they don't know this, and saying, if you do this, this will happen. If it's a lip appliance, for example, it'll be fine for most things. But if you're going for a tight close-up, here's what a piece that's been worn for 14 hours looks like. Shit, isn't it? Can you film on this? No, probably not. So can we do this first? And then, you log all this, you record it. And then if they want to shoot it at the end of the day, you have told them that it probably won't look great. And now it's not your fault anymore. Do you know what I mean? So but that's where experience comes from knowing these things in advance before they happen, so you can pull them up.
And do the close-ups before you do the wide shots, so you get the makeup when it's looking its best. If you can.
But it's not your call.
There are other there's
the light, there's the thing
in play,
they
but
might do it in post.
You can certainly make that aware. Make
absolutely
the parties aware that, it's an active scene. If you do the close-ups first, when the makeup looks fresh, it's going to look better, and you can hide it easier in the wide shots.
Exactly. So it's a case of knowing what the limitations of makeup is, and making your production aware of those limitations. And it's the limitations of the material, not your limitations, it's the limitations of the material. And we could do things like for a super tight close up of something, maybe we don't use the actor. Maybe we have a double for the ear cutting bit or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Where it looks exactly the same as far as we're concerned, but that guy can just sit there in a chill trailer all day long, or this actress has to do this thing. But it can be, you can jig things around so that. But those decisions won't get made if you haven't made the people aware of those limitations. So you really do need to be very clear about what will happen. You go through the script, you break it all down, and you have a clear list of what the contingencies are and what could go wrong. Oh man, I love that. That's Donna, right?
Yep.
Donna's little
Yeah.
sign. So yeah, keep that stuff. And know your job and delegate things as well. I think that's the biggest thing. But all of this really comes down to experience. It's a case of knowing what could go wrong before it goes wrong and making people aware. And so you avoid it, or you reduce the effect of it to some degree, or you say, this is going to happen if you do this, and then you go through it bit by bit by bit and keep lists of these things. This is why email is really nice, because it's timestamped, so keep a record of everything that's been agreed.
Well, it's rare that you can cheat experience to your benefit.
But it is hard when people sort of get opportunities in their lap. It's kind of like, you should of course take opportunities when you can, but I've seen situations where people have been given opportunities by somebody that knows them and thinks, they know the thing, and then it turns out they don't know the thing, and then it's embarrassing, and now they're not friends anymore because it was a very expensive mistake. And it's like, sometimes if you don't know how to do something, then you should say and delegate. Like if somebody said, you like makeup, right? Oh, I need this really expensive hair piece making or something. I'm like, I don't do that, but I know people who are really good, so I'll delegate. I'll get someone in who's really good at that, who won't fuck it up. And get them to do that, because it matters to me that they go away happy. Whereas if I fudge it thinking, I make lots of money, and I do a half-assed job, not only are they going to be unhappy, but all my friends who do hair are going to see that and go, that's fucking bullshit. So
yeah, I've been brought in on a few projects over the years. One fairly recently where the original people weren't up to snuff, and they realized too late and have to go back in and reshoot a lot of stuff, or are able to salvage it before it's too late and just change makeup people, because personality conflict between the makeup artist and the talent can be something you don't anticipate, where they're just you can't explain why it doesn't work, but the actors just can't stand being around their makeup artist. And it's like, okay. So I've been brought in situations like that where I've had to take over for somebody else who had basically created everything, and there just was no chemistry,
it's a
or
weird
bad
one,
chemistry.
Because at the end of the day, it's just people, right? Some people get on, some people don't. And I've been on productions where I've worked with one actor and they're like, they're fine with me, and another one, she's like really nice and we get on fine. And so it all depends on, you're like the same person, you're doing the same thing, but one of you just thought you were a piece of shit and the other one thought you were great. So it's like, you can't win. It's just doing those things. But yeah, with all of those things, a lot of it comes down to experience and seeing those things off before they happen and anticipating them. And one of the things that makes a big difference to that with experience and things is this is where budgets come into things. I think if you would put in a budget for things, like right now, if I got a call tonight, like right now, this is nearly 11:30 at night for me. If a friend of mine said, I need a life cast tomorrow morning, can you do it? The answer is yes, because everything I need for that is here right now. I have ball caps, I have silicone, I have alternate, I've got plaster bandage, I've got 4 different kinds of plaster. I'm good to go. I'd have to pack it up, but I'd be good to go. I could definitely do that. And the reason I can do that is because I keep all the essentials in stock. I keep a baseline of everything in stock all the time. And obviously that stuff runs out or expires or goes shit, so I have to replace it. So for me, I have, several grand's worth of stuff here all the time ready to go, because I never know when it's going to kick off. So that means if somebody needs something, I will charge a certain amount, because I have to cover those costs. If I need a life cast, I'm not going to do it for peanuts. Which means someone could see that and go, I know someone that might do it for less or whatever. And it's one of those things that you have to consider when budgeting for things is that if somebody charges something, it might be because they're insured, they have the stuff ready to go, they're qualified and trained to do it, and they have good crew with good reputation on standby, and they'll get the job done on time. And that's why you're paying that. And, it doesn't really matter until it matters. It's kind of like when it goes wrong, when the life cast goes wrong, when when you, I don't know, hurt somebody, or they have an allergies or something, or they because the person doing the life cast didn't think to check whether they were claustrophobic before they began or whatever,
What do you mean, no straws in the nose?
Exactly. So doing those things right costs money. If you're somebody that gets rid of things and does things the right way,
well,
it
you're not
costs
just
money.
paying for the materials, you're also paying for the experience.
Yes, but what I'm saying is sometimes you'll have that experience, but you may be approached by somebody who themselves is not experienced. It's some runner on something, and to them it sounds like a lot of money, and it's like, yeah, but that's because I guarantee you it'll work. What we do will, if you want that, it'll happen on that day, on that time, and that's fine.
And it's less than if
like
you have to do it again.
Yeah, it's like the first car I ever bought. I bought a car for 600 quid, and I thought I was king of the world because I'd found a car for so little money. And then 2 days later it broke down, and it was going to cost me like 1,500 to make it roadworthy. It's like, do you know what I mean? There's a reason why something costs so little. It's because, you know what I mean? And if you make it your living and that's how you live, eventually you're going to come unstuck, and it's like really, really bad. So there comes a point where, you have to kind of, these things cost a certain amount. There's a minimum cost that you will have to incur in order to be efficient and good at what you do sometimes, and things like that, like experience, like keeping stuff in stock, like having good friends on the phone at any time. If I need help tomorrow at 8:00, I know I can find someone because I've got, people that have stood by me, that I've stood by, that you can pull the stuff together because that's how the industry works. So it's kind of, it's quite a faceted thing, and it's not necessarily just a case of knowing how to sculpt and mold and cast and stick pieces on. It's all these other very intricate layered things which are not necessarily taught at makeup school, or they're not obvious to anyone who just sees Face Off or Glow Up or whatever those god awful shows where someone's sticking things on, and it just, like, the second you finish, suddenly everyone's cheering and slapping on the back and throwing gold at you. It's like, that doesn't happen like that.
But that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen without experience.
No. So a lot of it does come down to that. There we go. But when you start small.
I'm in the process. I've been going through lately a lot of my expendables. I've been replacing lots of things. Talking about having all the materials on hand. I'm in the process of restocking now, and it's just sucks that it's at a time right now when there's nothing going on, but it will. Things are going to come back. They're slowly starting to come back, and I need to make sure that I've got the stuff on hand.
Yeah, well, one thing that occurred to me is during this sort of quiet time, is I haven't seen Netflix or Amazon Prime's stock share, but I bet so many people are watching things. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
their subscription must have gone up, but they're burning through the stuff. Content is getting watched, and so everyone's going to want a third season of Umbrella Academy, or do you know what I mean? It's like, so there's going to be a bit of a rush, I think, for things going on. So like you say, you want to be in a position where
work is coming.
So yeah, so things have been kicked to the fucking curb with hobnail boots on. It's not been nice, but people still want stuff. People still need stuff. People still want the people to do it, to be competent and good at what they do and professional, and they want a good result. Goes for anything. So we had a plumber. We had a leak in our house where there was, my son's got a shower connected to his room, and there was a seal in the wall with a shower connecting one, and there was water coming down into the downstairs, into the hallway. I was like, oh shit, water from upstairs is never good.
No.
The shower wasn't on either. It was just like leaking. Anyway, so the guy fixed it, and he was in and out within like half an hour, and just fixed it. Knew exactly what the problem was, and it wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was like, he made that problem go away because he knew what the problem was and knew how to fix it. And that's what you want to be for other people. You want to be somebody that solves their problems. So, and that means experience. It means working for other people to get that experience. And I know that's hard to come by, but you can't leapfrog that. You can't just want it bad enough that you don't have to fucking put the hours in, because all that will happen is you'll fuck it up in a big way in front of someone that could really fuck you up. So you still need to put the hours in. And we've all made mistakes, but the trick is to make small mistakes for, working for other people in a way that it can be picked up. The pieces can be picked up by somebody else. It's a scary thing if it fucks up under you and you're like, oh shit, I didn't realize silicon might go wrong, or my delivery wouldn't turn up on time, or you would forget to put catalyst in, or whatever goes wrong.
It's a long list.
It is a long list, but avoiding those things is what makes you feel alive.
Yeah, well, you don't become a fixer overnight.
No, it's true. So come back to your print. How long is your print going to run for?
I'm not sure. It should be maybe a few more hours. It's just gotten started.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's going to be 60 millimeters high, so it's about 3 inches. 3 inches. It's not 60 millimeters is
about 2.5, I'd say.
2.5, yeah.
25 mil to an inch.
Yeah, just under 2.5.
Anyway, this is sounding very dry, dull, boring, techie stuff. But you know what?
Some people will dig it.
One of the things that I'm really enjoying about my 3D printing stuff is that it doesn't. What I've really, really learned is it doesn't stop or detract from the practical stuff at all, because I still like sculpting and talking about this. You can do both. It's not like if you have one, you stop doing the other. It really, really helps. It really helps, because you can think of all kinds of weird shit that you were, I'll just model up a thing that does a weird thing and then, let it print overnight. And whilst that's happening, I'm sculpting something else.
Oh yeah, no, I've printed replacement parts for a screen we've got out on the catio that helps connect it to the wall that broke during a high wind a couple of years ago, and I printed a replacement part rather than try to find one somewhere, and problem solved. It's crazy. It was so easy.
Once you get familiar, especially things like brackets and pretty straightforward parts, you can just throw it up on Fusion in about 20 minutes, and then it might take 15 hours or 20 hours to print, but that's happening while you're doing other things, so it doesn't matter. It's amazing. So I'm really pleased I've made that jump and gotten into that. So it's becoming slowly a part of what I do. And it's the same with ZBrush. I found with ZBrush, sculpting things in ZBrush has made me really appreciate the sculpture aspect, because you pretty quickly get used to how the tools work and where to grab the 5 things you need. And you can throw that stuff together pretty quickly. And the ZBrush Core Mini, I think it is free, and it's ZBrush. It's very, very stripped down, but it's the ZBrush Core Mini, and it's free. Not like for a time, it's free. It's like Sculptress is free. So if you've been thinking about skirting around doing digital sculpting, I strongly recommend the ZBrush Core Mini, because the layout's exactly the same as ZBrush, so it's familiar to you.
Then you can pop for the full version.
If you want to,
you feel
if you don't, it's like you can
if
use
you want
a legit good sculpting program. And there was another one. It was Wayne Humphreys that has been using it on Android. I think he's got it on iPad, but it's also available on Android, called Nomad, Nomad. And I bought it. It's like $13.99, I think, £14. Probably the same in dollars. And it's like,
have you played with it?
I have, yeah. I think it must be similar to Forger for iPad, and it's a little bit clunky because it's only just come out, but it's great for doodling. This is my thing. I think it's kind of like I'm not a particularly gifted artist at all when it comes to drawing, but I use Infinite Painter because I have an Android tablet. A lot of people use Procreate on the iPad. What I like about the fact that you can do it on a tablet is that you will pick it up and doodle for 10 minutes because it's easy. Whereas you've got to sit at a desk or at a laptop, or, it's quite a commitment. You've got to have a big space, whereas you can sit in bed with a pen tool and tablet and just kind of draw. And I've been having great fun doing that. But the Nomad is great. And you can export it as an OBJ or whatever, or I think you can do it as an STL as well. But the point is you can carry on working with it in something higher end if you want. But if you have a good idea for something, you just want to sketch
that was
something
going
in
to be a
3D.
question of mine.
Yeah, no, you can. You can output an OBJ.
Awesome.
So
now, is Nomad available for iPad or just Android?
Both. I think it came
Both?
on iPad first, I think, but I've got it on my tablet now. So
I'll have to give it a shot. That'd be fun.
It's worth looking at. I think Forger is pretty good from what I've seen, and I know Apple stuff is pretty slick, so it's probably better. But if you don't have an iPad, then maybe check out the Forger, the Nomad thing. But it's very cool. I'll put the link in the show notes. But
awesome.
I'm having fun with that. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I like our new software.
Yeah, we're using a thing called Squadcast, which is basically means we can speak simultaneously. We're seeing each other on camera, but the audio is being recorded separately onto separate streams, and then I can mix them afterwards. But it sounds pretty clear to me because I can use my nice microphone, which is good, and it hasn't dropped out like Skype did.
No.
Which is great.
Yes.
Much clearer video too.
So I think we have found a new normal.
I hope so.
For the Battles with Bits of Rubbercast.
Yeah. And again, apologies for the delay. I mean, it's been a mixture of all kinds of shit. Not the least of which has been my frame of mind has been, I'm sure a lot of people experience this, especially if you're a creative type. I've been feeling fucking awful for the longest time. I've actually been very lucky. I've had a fair bit of work, not film work. I've had a couple of bits of film work, but mostly it's been a couple of private things. I've NDA'd. I can't sign. I've signed stuff I can't talk about. But I've been painting and I've been sculpting and I've been molding. So I've been keeping myself busy, keeping my head above water. So it's not that, but it's just that general feel of like, all of that has just made me feel a bit like, oh. It's really, really sad and bit down. So for the longest time, it's just been like really hard to find the energy to be peppy and talk about stuff because you're kind of going over stuff in your head and going, what the fuck's going on? Where am I at? And what do I mean anymore? And all that heavy shit, which I'm sure everyone's going through. And entire industries are shutting down.
Well, you haven't killed anyone yet, so that's a plus.
But it's just jobs are going here and there and everywhere, and everyone's terrified and what to do. And there's lots of good things that are happening. I think people are being a bit nicer to each other generally when they see people or meet up with family and stuff. But it's just, I'm really feeling like the novelty of it has worn off, shall we say? So it's been.
It's long gone, and it's been so freaking hot. That hasn't helped.
No, but I just,
I think that just kind of exacerbates the problem.
I just felt like I needed, a little explanation for the people that have been listening. Go, where's the next episode? And it's been a combination of me feeling like shit about stuff, me being incredibly busy, you having huge computer problems, like fucking, like awful.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, couldn't you just pop into, I don't know, Best Buy and buy it? But I know you'd like to buy, build your machine and make it nice and everything. And but you'd ordered parts that were taking weeks,
which is looking pretty good. It's working. Yeah. Oh well, yeah. The new motherboard took, I think, 2 weeks longer than I anticipated. It was supposed to show up the following week, and 3 weeks passed before I got the motherboard. And my graphics card had a massive stroke and took the motherboard with it. Fortunately, I didn't lose any data.
That is a godsend. But it's one of those things where it's like, and because so many things are slow generally, like you might order 5 different parts from 5 different places, and then, one of them just takes the longest time to get that sent to you. So anyway, I feel like we're I made some big changes on the background here with things, and there were some services we were using that we're not anymore, and we're taking on new services that we hadn't had before, and this seems to be working quite well. The audio quality is good. So email us, stuarttodd@gmail.com. Leave us a voice message from the website. You can do that. And thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
we'll put it in the
and,
podcast.
tell one other person about us. If you have a friend who likes prosthetics, let
Yes.
them know. Send them the link.
Only one, not two, just one.
Well, I think if we have, like 500 listeners or so, if everyone tells one other person, that's 1,000. That doubles the amount of people that listen to us. So
that would be
lovely.
great.
Anyway, I'm going to go because I'm very tired.
Well, it's almost 5:00 here, so the drinking lamp is about to be lit.
Do you still have a gong for that?
Of course.
Well, it's a shame you can't.
I'm going to go
Can
ring
you
the
ring
gong.
the gong?
I have to go
Okay.
upstairs to do it.
I didn't know if you had an app because you had an actual gong.
I used to have a gong app on my phone. I'll just boom.
I had an app that I got rid of. But I had an app which was a drum roll, and I used to use it when people in classes were opening molds. But I stopped doing it because it was really mean. And then my thumb would hover over. You've got a cheer or a. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, there's no more sinking feeling in class when you're a student and you're opening your mold and you crack it.
Well, it teaches you about how not to make a mold. I stopped doing it because I figured I wouldn't appreciate that. So.
Yeah. What a horrible feeling it must be.
As funny as it is to me.
I mean, it is a horrible feeling because I've done it. We've all done it at some point in our lives.
Yeah. Well, I was making some molds with Jesmonite recently, and that happened. Jesmonite is that kind of acrylic based stuff. Is it Fortnum?
No, like Forton
MG
is
a similar one, and it's good, but it's not. You basically have to beef up the mold walls and edges and stuff what you're going to pry against, and you need to figure out how your molds are designed.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to get into that now, but
too much physics. We'll leave the physics for another time.
All right, dude. Thanks very much.
All right, talk to you soon.
Take care, man. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You can get in touch through our Facebook page or email us at stuartandtodd@gmail.com. Check the show notes for more information. If you enjoyed this episode, tell someone else and help us grow by sharing it on social media. Thanks for listening.